The call of the Hogs can be heard all the way to San Francisco.
You're listening to Pod at the Palace with Curtis Wilkerson on Inside Arkansas.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday, Easter Sunday to everybody. Shout out to you guys. Happy Easter to all of you and your loved ones. Hope everybody's decked out in their Sunday best, your pastels, whatever you might wear on a day like today. What do you guys do on Easter? You guys follow the traditions? You dye the eggs for the kiddos, or do you put the cool stuff in the plastic eggs? That's the big question here. I used to have fun dyeing the eggs when I was a kid until I learned that in the plastic ones, you might have money or candy or something cool, right? And that kind of changed my perspective a little bit on the whole Easter egg hunt phenomenon. You guys ever been to one of those adult Easter egg hunts? Those things are electric. Me and my wife went to one at a minor league baseball stadium in St. Louis, and it was incredible, man. I mean, there were $100 bills in some of these things, beer tokens, all kinds of stuff. It was a good time. It's a good time. It's a holiday for everybody, I guess you could say. But obviously, there's a greater cause, a greater reason to celebrate the holiday. But it's always fun for the kiddos. What do you tell the kids first? In terms of, and I don't want to spoil any secrets here, but, there are some of these mythical holiday-related creatures that may or may not actually be real or figments of our imagination. Which one do you drop the news on first? I don't think you can go with the big guy, the big jolly guy. That's, you got to break them in, wear them down a little bit. These are things I'm thinking about as I'm getting ready to become a father. Okay? So I was just thinking out loud here. You guys had big dinners, big Easter dinners. We used to make a big meal at home, but since we moved to Fayetteville and it's just kind of us here, we started going out. It's just like a new tradition of ours. Our very first year here in Fayetteville, we went to Cheers at the Opo, and it was still during the COVID time. It was shortly after it opened. Terrible experience, man. The steak was gristly and fatty. They didn't bring me the drink that I ordered. Michelle wasn't happy with her meal. The service wasn't great. It was kind of a bummer on that day, but we loved the vibes in there. And when we left, we kind of decided, man, we're not going back. But by the time the next Easter rolled around and we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do, I just kind of threw it out there at her. I was like, maybe we give it a second chance, and we did, and we loved it. And it was awesome. And we're regulars there now. We go a couple times a month probably, but every Easter, we'll walk in there and enjoy a meal at Cheers, and it's a good time. So we're looking forward to that today. For sure. Sorry. Good grief. Nobody cares what I'm doing on Easter Sunday. Basketball. Let's get back on task here. I am not anticipating an Easter surprise this year. Although shout out to Sammy Pittman and the boys for going out and just shoring up the defense. I mean, literally a piece on every level of the defense over the weekend, right after the portal opened up. So good job on them. Shout out to Remy Cofield. Is he paying dividends already? Pretty impressive, man. Nice consolation too for having to scrap the spring game and the autograph session and everything. The weather was real crummy here in Fayetteville, and I know a lot of people were thinking, well, they could have gotten it in. It wasn't raining at 1:00, and that's true. But at the same time, nasty conditions. The field probably was not in good shape. You don't want anybody to get out there and get injured. Certainly not in a spring game. And so I feel bad for the people who, were already traveling probably a few hours down the road to come that weren't able to see it or do the autograph thing. That sucks. I get why they scrapped it, but at any rate, I finally remember on the basketball front, the Tremont Mark pop on Easter Sunday a couple years ago. It was so funny because he snuck on campus for a visit, and at least his staff was pretty good about letting us know, with the portal guys, especially if we were able to point them out specifically. It'd be one thing to be like, hey, who's visiting this weekend? Yeah, sometimes you might get that, sometimes you wouldn't. But if you catch wind of a name and say, hey, is so-and-so coming into town? They'd usually let you know. Now I might say, hey, let's try to keep it on the down low or whatever. We didn't even get that with T Mark. It was crickets. And so they were really trying to sneak him in and out. Hot commodity at the time coming out of Houston. But it was funny, the night before, he got spotted out at Tin Roof with Mekhi Mitchell and Devo. And so kind of blew his cover there. And then he committed the next day. So good times, good stuff. Quiet day on Saturday, which I don't think is surprising at all, honestly, given the the holiday weekend and everything, Arkansas just had the mad rush, but it was quiet in general. The national landscape. There's a couple commitments. I saw Auburn got a guy, went the Division II route, really good Division II player, and they've had success there. Chaney Johnson, one of them, with a D2 guy who's going to play up for him now. So a few guys committing here and there, not a lot of big names entered the portal. So not much new to talk about on that way or on that front. I mean, but I'm going to dive in on why I'm always yapping about the importance of adding 3-point shooting to this roster. But I do understand it's portal season. And so after I give my explanations here, I've also got a list of 10, 11, upwards of a dozen available sharpshooters in the portal who I think could fit the mold depending on what they're looking at there. Before we do that, I do want to take a quick glance at is there a plan B here? Because we know that Arkansas is in the market for another big fish, trying to reel one in, make another splash in the portal here for the rotation and then fill out with some supplemental pieces. But what if they don't get any of these guys? Because, there's a lot of excitement about PJ Haggerty, Chad Baker-Mazara, Jameer Watkins, and we've talked about them quite a bit, but there's certainly no guarantees there. Some of those guys might stay in the draft. Some of them might go elsewhere. There's no certainty. So who would be next in the stud category if Arkansas was in a position to where they had to pivot? Would RJ Lewis suddenly become a thing from St. John's? I don't know that would solve any of Arkansas's shooting concerns, but I mean, he's the Big East player of the year, and he's a guy where you just haven't heard anything about his potential college recruitment yet. He's definitely not going back to St. John's, right? I mean, can we all agree on that after Arkansas forced Rick Pitino to benching him at the end of that game? So I wonder where that thing's headed. Would they turn and try to make a big push at Darion Williams out of Texas Tech, who I've heard a reunion to Lubbock. We've talked about it. Like BYU maybe looking to really continue to add some pieces around AJ DeBance over there. Do they still have money for that? I guess. Baylor needs to fill an entire roster. So there's suitors, but would they try to kick the tires with that? Does Denzel Aberdeen qualify? Maybe the next tier down, I guess, the Florida transfer. So will be interesting. Maybe that's a topic we can dive in a little bit deeper on tomorrow if nothing happens in terms of new intel. But what we might get, and what I'm really hoping for and on the lookout for, some more big names to enter between now and the time this portal window closes. So we've got about 72 hours. The end of the day on Tuesday that's it. The portal's done in terms of guys being able to enter it if they're not a grad transfer. Grad transfers can enter whenever they want, but the general population of basketball players out there that can't enter after Tuesday, you can commit whenever. So, I mean, there's going to be 2,000 guys in there who are uncommitted. It doesn't mean they have to commit by then. They've got all the time they want, but to put your name in, you got to do it before the end of the day on the 22nd. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how this thing fills out, because it'll probably be pretty much our final pool of guys to look at here. Personally, I'm requesting maybe a handful of stretch forwards, some 3-and-D wings, just make that pool a little bit deeper for Arkansas to work with here, because it does seem like in terms of major impact guys, maybe slim pickings from that standpoint. And there's plenty of really good guys who could fill roles and add to your depth, and I think make this roster better, deeper, stronger, more complete for sure. But when we're talking about our heavy hitters, only a handful right now. So how about a Sunday shout out before we get into it? Just to all the sponsors out there, the Pod at the Palace here during portal season. We certainly appreciate them. The support, making it all possible. So the Eye Center of Northwest Arkansas, HD Roofing and Construction, Basis Health, Bryant Technologies, Alumni Hall, every single one of them. We certainly do appreciate you. We had a blast out at Alumni Hall on Friday, and we're looking forward to getting back out there again next month. Shooting. Okay. I mean, it's honestly, it's just one of very few legitimate reasons for any sort of, concern with this Arkansas team going into next season. Right. Man, have we heard that before? You know what I'm saying? I mean, for whatever reason, 3-point shooting has been neglected. It's like the redheaded stepchild of, things that happen in a basketball game, I guess, in Fayetteville for about the last half decade. Now, don't get me wrong. Okay. Has it stopped Arkansas from having tremendous success? Of course not. 4 Sweet 16s in 5 years, man. A couple Elite Eights. They've been knocking at the door of a Final Four here. So I'm not saying that this has held them back, but is it one of, if not the top thing that you could really point to as to why Arkansas hasn't taken that next step yet? Maybe so. We can always look at matchups and injuries, and in this game it was rebounding. Yeah, and there's different things, but overall, just the 40,000 foot view of all these teams. If you're just trying to point out the weakness, right, the area where somebody can get you, it's 3-point shooting is always one of the first ones that you can look at. It's interesting. How about we fix it? This year's Final Four teams all shot 35.6% or better from three. Arkansas shot 32.7%. And that's one of the better years that they've had recently. The Final Four teams, so Auburn and Florida and Duke and Houston, they averaged 9.3 made threes per game. Arkansas was at 7 flat. It's 256 in the country for the Razorbacks. 27.5% of Arkansas's total points came via the three this season. 27.5. Every Final Four team was at least 32.6. 36.6% of Arkansas shot attempts came from three. That was 242nd in the country. It was 15th in the SEC. Only Texas was lower than that. I throw out all those stats there just to tell you there's a gap, right? And I'm not saying Arkansas has to suddenly become a 40% three-point shooting team. I'm not saying they need to become Alabama or whoever else, Kentucky, whoever else that fires them up there. But the last 5 national champions, let's do that, for example. 3-point percentage for the last 5 national champions: 35.6, 35.8, 36.3, 36.1, and 41.3. So that 41.3 was that Baylor team that beat Arkansas, by the way. But my point is, you don't have to be night and day different. You just got to get a little bit better. If you aren't going to prioritize volume, which John Calipari never has, and based on the makeup of this roster so far, and they got some pieces to add, I understand that. This one's not going to prioritize a lot of volume from three either. So where can you close the gap? I think it's percentage, right? Make the ones you take at a higher clip. That's all. It doesn't have to be crazy. You don't have to go from 32% to 40% this year. But what do we just read off? All those championship teams for the most part in that 35, 36% range. Is that really asking too much? I don't think it is. My buddy Ben Brandon, he put out that graphic about a week ago that over the last 4 seasons, Arkansas ranks 14th in the SEC in 3-point percentage. That's 31.6. That ain't great. And dead last in both makes and attempts. So the way I look at it, and I get it, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and other areas, defensive rebounding, they got to improve on. Yep. Sure. I understand all that. But it feels like an easy way to level up a little bit as a program from an already strong level is just to go from bad to average in this particular area. I mean, is that too big of an ask? Especially when you have the resources Arkansas does at its disposal. Like, why would you not address what's been a weakness if you can? Go get some proven commodities out there. John Calipari set up at the podium, at least a dozen times last season, talking about, missing wide open shots. We missed all. You can miss some of them. You can't miss all your threes. Not able to make threes. Please make a shot. It was like a running shtick with him up there, And I look at it, and the reason why I feel like that's the biggest missing ingredient to finalize the roster for next year, we're talking about, hey, man, this is a Final Four contender, is because arguably your 3 best shooters off of that team, Boogie, Nelly, and Big Z, who accounted for 55% of Arkansas's makes from 3, they're gone. And as we stand here today, and again, there's still pieces to add, so we'll see what it looks like at the end here. And that's my entire point. But Arkansas has not sufficiently replaced those guys, much less improved overall in terms of their perimeter shooting prospects here. I mean, looking at the current roster, I think you can confidently expect more 3-point production from Trevin because of opportunity there for sure. But he's never made more than 24 in a season for the record. I would anticipate he does that this year, though, with the opportunities he's going to have if he's playing like he did at the end of last season. Carter would be another one. 35%. I mean, that's probably about right for Carter, but I could see his volume going up from 35 makes to 50 or so. Absolutely. I could see that. DJ, we can probably safely assume, I would think at this point, that he's kind of is what he is out there. Maybe some marginal improvement, nothing crazy. Billy, maybe a little bit, but I don't think that's suddenly going to become a big part of his game. Your transfer portal additions, awesome. Exactly what you need in the front court. Malik Ewan, he's going to be a bucket getter. Pringle's going to be tough as hell. Both of them are going to be all over the glass. Neither one of them are shooting threes. Hey, you're not asking them to do that. I think Malik Thomas is going to be super, super important for Arkansas. This is a dude who shot 38% on 8 attempts per game. So you're going to need some volume from him. Now going from overtime elite to the SEC is going to be, it's a big leap, right? So you're going to need some volume from him. He's going to help you. I think he's going to be streaky out there. Darius Acuff really hasn't shown a ton of consistency, honestly, on that front. And I'm not just talking about the other night or McDonald's game, but I think he shot sub 30% this season, his senior year of high school. Now, he did shoot really, really well from 3 in the EYBL last summer. So I think you have something to work with there, but think about him in the backcourt. Like, do we think he's going to replace Nelly's production from 3? I don't. Boogie's probably not. Maybe. So at the end of the day, what I think has been kind of surprising to me so far in the portal is that I know that's an area that has been identified that they want to address. But Arkansas really hasn't heavily pursued or prioritized these shooters just yet. Plenty of options too, right? I mean, how many times did we, a better way to say is how many days, like how much time did we waste on Lamar Wilkerson, Jaron Pierre, Ian Jackson, 3 really, really good shooters that you were connected to, but as it turns out, didn't really go all in on. Haven't seen Arkansas attached to some of the more well-known names right now. Rylan Griffin, nope, visiting Kentucky. Trayson Eaglestaff, decommitted from South Carolina, nothing there with Arkansas just yet. Cedric Coward, is he going to Alabama or Florida or Duke? Alvaro, the stretch big man. Any of those proven commodities, we haven't really heard much. But Arkansas did Zoom with Abdi Bashir out of Monmouth, who's one of the best pure shooters. He wound up going to Kansas State, but they at least took it to a Zoom call. They hit up Adam Miller, who's kind of that next tier, right? Who is, a 40% shooter from 3 this past season. I think he's going to wind up going elsewhere. But that seems to be the market that they're in to address this. It's like they want that specialist, that role guy who probably is not going to command a whole ton of minutes, but can come in there and knock down those threes for you while he's in there. Interesting. Very interesting. The guys that we've been able to connect Arkansas with, the big fish, right? Like Jameer Watkins, he can shoot. He made over 50 threes this year. Certainly not a shooter. He's a scorer more than shooter. Same with Haggerty. Chad Baker-Mazara would be the biggest impact guy who would stand out in terms of perimeter shooting for Arkansas. Like that would be a big fish who could give you exactly what you need from 3. BJ Freeman, again, knucklehead from Arizona State. It's like I don't know about that one. He really have to pass the background check there. And he's not exactly a sniper, but 35+% with good volume. But whether it's a big splash or a specialist, Cal wants to add shooting. I think he actually told some students that at that little luncheon thing that he did the other day. It's like, oh, I'd like to add a shooter. We would like you to. So who else then? Because I love doing this when we have a little bit of downtime between craziness throughout portal season. I like to do a little bit of digging. That's what I did just to see. Because remember, Cal, if you go back to his time in Kentucky, he has a track record of identifying some guys like this in the portal, mid-major shooters or under-the-radar shooters. Think Kellen Grady from Davidson. Think Antonio Reeves. Think CJ Frederick they got from Iowa. Right, so he's been good for it. in the past. So could they try to go that route with maybe a more unheralded name to get what they need to get? So got 10, 12 names here that I want to throw at you, and then we'll wrap it up for the day. Shout out to the Discord, by the way, for a couple of these names that we have here. And I'm going to pull them up kind of as we go through it here. But the first one is Alex Chaikin from Lafayette. And most of these guys I tried to go with, make sure they have eligibility, because you have all these fifth-year dudes or guys who've played 5 years or something who just think that they have another year and they're hitting the portal, but they don't have eligibility. Trying to avoid that as much as possible. But Chaikin here, interesting guy. He's from Williamsburg, Virginia, by the way, which is where me and my wife got married, and we'll be out there in a couple weeks. So if I need to, put him in my check bag and bring him back to Fayetteville, I can do that if you guys would prefer it. But I like to see these guys with size, because I think you need to have someone who can, at the bare minimum, play the 2-3. Ideally some 3-4. This guy wouldn't qualify. He's skinny, 6'5", 170. So I think he would really profile as a zone buster type, probably. But, he made 83s at 48% shooting as a true freshman. So, I mean, that's pretty good if you're looking for somebody that you can trust from that standpoint. I want to see if they played anybody worthwhile. Villanova is their first game of the year. He didn't do anything in there. It was just pretty much an all mid-major schedule there for him. But an interesting name. That one was pulled by the Discord. The other one that I wanted to bring up, and I thought this one was interesting, is Jonathan Pierre from Belmont. And it's funny because you thought you were going to get Jaron Pierre. It turns out you weren't necessarily on him as much as you thought you would be. Interestingly enough, with this kid, his last name is Pierre. Was he the one that Arkansas was on all along? People are talking. Here's what I love about him. First of all, Belmont, you know that they're good for shooters, right? This kid, 6'9", 210 pounds. So he could play some stretch four for you. Knocked down 73 3-pointers this season at 37%. That catches my eye, man. That really catches my eye. Like the size, average 14 points, over 6 rebounds, 3.5 assists, which is good too, and is just kind of a 3-point specialist out there for a program that we know produces good talent that's been able to translate up to higher levels. So, yeah, how about that? Jonathan Pierre. Okay, that's a name that I will definitely pay attention to. We talked about Denzel Aberdeen yesterday, and I don't know if he would qualify as a sharp shooter necessarily, because he shot 35% from three, 35.3% from three 2 years ago, 35% this past year. Only 36, so about a make per game, but he was also on kind of limited minutes. I mean, he played about 20 minutes per game. He was at Florida coming off the bench, but it looks like he's a guy who understands how to play the 6-man role, come in, get his threes up, and could probably get an uptick there. An interesting player. I don't see a scenario where Arkansas would add Chad Baker-Mazara and then him, or Jameer Watkins and then him. I don't think so. Some of these other guys, I could see that. Like the last two guys we talked about, I could see that scenario playing out. Wouldn't see this with Aberdeen. And it's also why I think he might be more unlikely, because I think he's going to go somewhere where he can really start and have more of a featured role next season, but I at least wanted to bring him up. An interesting name that we've talked about here recently is Jalen Celestine from Baylor. And he fits the role of, 6'7", 215. So he's kind of that ideal big wing, can play the 3 or the 4 for you, right? And so that's exactly where you could fit in another guy. And we talked about him. He wound up, he was a part-time starter at Baylor. Okay. He played 3 seasons at Cal and did some good stuff there for them. But he started 11 games for Baylor, kind of settled into an off-the-bench role for them. And, he played 25 minutes a game. He hit over 53s. He shot at 35.4% from 3. He's a 38% shooter from 3 for his career, though. And so this guy who played in the Pac-12, he played in the Big 12, understands how to play a role. It just, that is something that could make sense to me. And I haven't heard a whole hell of a lot about his recruitment since he entered. And it's something I want to check a little bit more on, but I think a guy like that could make a lot of sense for Arkansas. Now, is he a guy who, is going to come in and knock down 100 threes for you? No, like he doesn't completely solve the issues that you have there. but he would definitely provide a boost, in my opinion, at least. Another guy that I found interesting was Chris Bell out of Syracuse. So a guy who's played in the ACC, he averaged 9 points per game for him this past season, 6'7", 192 pounds. So again, another guy with length who can play out there on the wing and give you a little bit of flexibility there. And if you look at him over the course of his career, this is a dude who's, again, another guy who's a 38% shooter from three. Now, he made 47 threes this season at 35%. Last year, he made 84 threes and he shot at 42%. So this is a dude that can make them. He can knock them down. He's got a little bit of size. That's interesting to me. The one thing that I saw about him is that he might have some work to do in the summer classes to be able to be eligible or be good to go at his next stop. But that's an interesting name, in my opinion, Chris Bell over at Syracuse. And, just kind of going through and looking at it. He hit 7 threes in a game against Pitt. He hit 4 in a game against Pitt earlier, 4 of 7 against Louisville, 4 of 4 against Florida State. So, this dude can shoot it. There's some options there, man. Damari Monsanto is a guy that I've talked about quite a bit in the past. I've thought that Arkansas could have maybe gone after him last year for this exact type of role. And we saw him earlier in the season. He was playing for UTSA. 6'6", 225 pounds, so some good size on him. And he was coming off of an injury, was the deal with him. Now, this year for UTSA, he hit 100 threes and he shot at 42%. Just stroked it. Absolutely stroked it. 3 years ago in 2022-23 at Wake Forest, he made 87 threes and he shot at 40.5%. And then it was the season before, in between there, that he got hurt. He played in, I think, 11 games there. And he wound up getting hurt. Now, he would need to get that year back because he's played 5 years. One of them was the COVID year, but that 23-24 season, he played in 11 games. And that's one more than the cutoff. And he had that season-ending injury. So he would have to apply for the hardship. That's one that might actually get approved, and that's the only reason I included him here. But I see a guy who's probably looking to get himself back up to a higher level, could play a role for you, has done it in a good league before. Damari Monsanto. Makes a little bit of sense to me. Cade Tyson's a guy we talked about, but Arkansas, it only makes sense to me because of his size. He was at North Carolina. Another Belmont guy who shot it really well there a couple years ago. Have not seen Arkansas connected to him yet in some of those lists that have come out. Let's see. Who else do I have here? Nick Dorn is another name out of Elon. You remember when Arkansas used to play Elon? This is a guy, he's spent 2 years over there now. 6'7", 200 pounds, so he checks that box. Averaged 15 points a game for him, scored quite a bit, but he was only 37% from the field. But the reason why is because the dude just shoots threes like crazy. He took 240 shots his freshman year, 165 of them were threes. And he shot 36.4%. He took 289 shots this year, 211 of them were threes, and he shot at 35%. So he is a shooting specialist. Shooting specialist. That's what he does. That's his shtick, and he's sticking to it. Nick Dorn out of Elon has my interest. Who else do we have here? Marko Milicic from Western Illinois. Now, this dude, he very well may be a cone defensively. Okay, so I don't know how much he'd be providing you from there, but I just saw him, and he's 6'6", and he's from Western Illinois. The dude made 92 threes at 47% shooting. That is stroking it, man. That's pretty good. So he might be a little bit lower on my list than some of these other guys who might be able to give you a little bit more than just that. But my goodness gracious, that's high volume, high percentage. Christian Davis out of Bradley. Bradley is one of the programs that came to Simmons Bank and played against Arkansas a couple years ago. Christian Davis, 6'7", long. He had 51 makes this season from three at 44%. So there's a lot of guys out there in that, 6'5" to 6'8" range who, high volume guys or really high percentage guys. There's some options out there. Like if Arkansas wanted to get into that quote unquote secondary market to fill the void on the wing with a shooter who could be your 10th man or whatever in the rotation, and maybe even play more if you have an injury or whatever, There's some good options, more than I thought there was, I guess is what I should say. And that's why I'm happy that I did this. Also, one more good pull from the Discord, from the international ranks, Marius Blanca out of France, 6'7", another 20-year-old. He could join Kareem Rattel as 21-year-old freshman. They got to campus. He's been playing U21 over there and shot 37% from three himself. So there you have it. But I know a lot of people have been looking around. They're like, if we don't get Haggerty or Chad Baker-Mazara or Jameer Watkins, what the hell are we going to do? There's going to be more names before the end of the day Tuesday. And then based on your needs, because even if you just say, all right, they're not going to get another big dog, you need shooting and you need some more front court help, like somebody to play alongside Trevin, right? Plenty of options there. The portal is deep, man. So they're going to be just fine. But hey, hope everybody enjoys their Easter and appreciate you for rocking with us. Ben Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas on the Pod at the Palace. We will see you guys tomorrow morning. As always, you guys have a good one.